Have you ever just stared at a blank page, completely stuck on how to start a formal report? Well, today we're going to fix that. We're going to tackle this head on, and by the end of our time together, you'll have a complete blueprint for writing a fantastic investigative report for your first language English exam. We're turning a task that seems kind of tricky into a simple, step-by-step process. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll get clear on what a report actually is. Then we'll map out the perfect structure, learn the specific kind of language that examiners are looking for, and then, the best part, we'll actually build a model report together. So let's jump right in. All right, first things first, let's lay the foundation. Before we can build a great report, we need to be absolutely crystal clear on what one is.
So what is a report, really? Well, you can think of it like a detective's notebook. It's all about the facts, and only the facts. You can see the key words right here: formal, factual, and objective. And that objective part is super important. It means you have to leave your own feelings and opinions, like I think or I feel, at the door. It's all about presenting information in a clear, unbiased way.
Here's the easiest way to remember it. A great report really just boils down to this simple formula. You need solid facts, a clear structure that's super easy for anyone to follow, and objective language that keeps your own opinions out of it. If you can nail these three things, you're golden.
Now, of course, report is a pretty broad term, right? You've got news reports, accident reports, scientific reports, the list goes on. But for your exam, the one you're most likely going to write is an investigative report. And that is all about digging into the reasons behind why something happened. So that's going to be our focus today.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation. Now it's time to look at the blueprint. Just like when you're building a house, a good report needs a really solid structure to hold everything together properly.
A fantastic tool for this comes straight from the world of journalism. It's called the inverted pyramid. The idea is simple, but it is so powerful. You put the most critical information, the stuff your reader absolutely has to know, right at the very top. Then you start adding the important supporting details. And finally, you finish up with the extra background context at the end. This makes sure that your reader gets the main point immediately.
So let's put this into practice with our case study, which we'll call the Plantation. Picture this. There's been an explosion. You are the investigator. Your mission, your only mission, is to report the facts: what happened, who was involved, and what caused it. Your report has to be totally objective, just the evidence, nothing more.
And for this Plantation task, here is the exact 7-paragraph structure that will set you up for success. It's like a secret formula. Each paragraph has a very specific job to do, from introducing the purpose to detailing the discovery, explaining the cause, and then ending with clear recommendations. If you follow this plan, your report is going to have a perfect, logical flow. All right, we've got our blueprint in hand, so it's time to gather our tools. Now, in writing, our tools are our words. And for a report, we need to use a very specific kind of language, the language of pure objectivity.
The golden rule here is to be factual, not emotional. You want to use formal words, write from a third-person perspective, and use something called the passive voice, which we'll get to in a sec. And here's what you absolutely have to avoid: emotional words, personal pronouns like I or we, any kind of slang, and definitely your own opinions. Remember, you're a reporter, not a storyteller.
Let's make this super practical. Just by swapping out a few simple words, you can instantly make your writing sound more professional. So instead of saying you saw something, use observed. Instead of broke, try damaged. And swap out happened for the more formal occurred. Honestly, these small changes make a massive difference in the overall tone of your report. Okay, one of the most powerful tools for staying objective is the passive voice. So what on earth is it? Well, it's just a way of building a sentence so that the focus is on the action itself, or the object, and not on the person who did the action. This is absolutely key for getting that neutral, impersonal tone that every good report needs.
And creating it is actually pretty simple. You just take the object of the sentence and move it right to the front. Then you add a version of the verb to be, like was or were. And then you use the past participle of the main verb. So for example, the active sentence, workers damaged the pipe, becomes the pipe was damaged. See how the focus instantly shifts from the workers to the pipe itself? That's the magic of the passive voice.
Check this out. It's a perfect example. On the left, with the active voice, the sentence is all about the researcher. But look at the right. By switching to the passive voice, the focus totally shifts to the data. The data becomes the star of the sentence. This is a brilliant little trick to make your writing sound way more objective because it emphasizes the action itself, not the person who did it.
So why bother with this passive voice thing? Well, think about a science experiment report. It sounds more professional to say the water was heated to 100 degrees instead of I heated the water. See, the focus stays on the scientific process, not on you. It just keeps the tone neutral and objective, which is exactly what we want in a report.
Okay, let's make sure this concept is locked in with a quick little activity. We're going to practice flipping some sentences from the active voice to the passive voice.
All right, take a look at the first active sentence. Villagers reported the smell. How would you make that passive? Give it a try. It becomes, the smell was reported by villagers. Nice. Okay, next up, workers found the pipe. And that becomes, the pipe was found by workers. Perfect. One more. The explosion injured 3 people. This one becomes, 3 people were injured in the explosion. See? You're already getting the hang of it.
All right, we have our blueprints and we have our tools. Now it's time for the final build. Let's put everything we've learned together and assemble the full plantation report, piece by piece. And to make this even more straightforward for you, here is a writing skeleton. These are basically sentence starters for each of our 7 paragraphs. Think of it like a fill-in-the-blanks template. It takes care of all the formal structures so you can focus just on getting the facts in there correctly.
All right, it's time to put on our hard hats. In Section 5, we're actually going to use our blueprint and our tools to build a sample report piece by piece based on this plantation explosion case study.
So we start right at the top with a clear title and purpose. Report on the explosion at the plantation. And the intro? This report explains the events that led to the explosion and highlight necessary safety improvements. It just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it?
Okay, now for the findings. This is the part where we just present the core facts, plain and simple. On Monday morning, workers discovered an old metal pipe. The language here is totally factual. It states what was found and adds important context, like the idea that the pipe might have been damaged during some recent digging.
And we keep building on that with more specific findings. For example, several villagers reported smelling petrol, or according to an eyewitness, smoke was seen. You see what's happening? We're just presenting the information exactly as it was collected. No judgment, no opinion.
Okay, now we're moving up to the analysis of the causes. And this is a fantastic example of that passive voice we talked about in action. It is believed that petrol leaking from the damaged pipe was ignited. See that? It is believed. We're not pointing fingers, we're not guessing, we're just presenting a logical conclusion based on the evidence, but in a really neutral, objective way.
And finally, we get to the top floors: constructive recommendations and a summary. It is recommended that underground pipelines be inspected regularly. This section is so important because it provides a clear path forward. It turns all those facts and findings into real, actionable advice. And then the report just wraps it all up with a quick summary.
Before you hand in any piece of writing, a final check is absolutely essential. So here is your quick checklist to make sure every report you write is perfect. Okay, let's run through it one last time. Do use headings, do put the most important info first, do write clearly, and do use that passive voice. And on the flip side, don't add personal feelings or opinions, don't write it like a creative story, and never ever use I or we. Keep this list in mind, and you'll be writing polished professional reports every single time.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this blueprint helpful for building up your own skills, it would be awesome if you'd like, share, and subscribe to Nestlingua for more just like it.